application. Sometimes these reviewers are in your field, and sometimes they're not. And so that's something to keep in mind when you're writing your goal statement. You may be speaking to somebody that's unfamiliar with your area of expertise. But the bottom line is, and there's about a 10% success rate in most competitions that I've been involved in. I generally get a stack of about 30 applications to review that are anywhere from 20 to 50 pages long. And I'm going to pick out one or two. So what that should say to you is it should be easy for the reviewer to wade through your materials and pull out the pertinent information. And there should be something in there that captures their attention. And if not, and I've got a rule of thumb that I'll talk about later on, but about 3 typos, and I figure that the student hasn't taken enough effort to look at their application and they go in the no pile. So, having said that, I'm going to talk about a few things about the process and the application. And if you've got questions, please put them in the chat and we will get to them as we go along. And if not, you can email them to me later on. So general criteria, regardless of what we're talking about, whether we're talking about engineering or whether we're talking about political science or applications, there needs to be some evidence of excellence. Scholarly potential, definitely in the area of fellowships for graduate work, postgraduate, undergraduate work. And then specifically, they may be looking at research that you've done, study abroad that you've participated in, leadership activities, and service. And so as you are completing this year of your mortarboard, think about these things and volunteer in these areas. Specifically, the ones that I reviewed for are the National Science Foundation. NDSEG is another national science and engineering, and SMART fellowships that these offer about $35,000 to $40,000 worth of support for your graduate program, anywhere from 3 to 5 years. GEM is a program for minority students in engineering at specific universities. And I just throw that up here because it's something for you to pay attention to. In the international arena, there are Rhodes, Marshall, Mitchell, various UK, various Scotland, Ireland. So if you're interested in doing study abroad in the graduate arena, then look into these fellowships. Fulbright also offers various teaching and research grants. What you should gain from this is that there are a lot of opportunities out there and you need to be searching for them, but they're relatively easy to find, and I'll give you a couple of tools for finding those. Undergraduate-wise, some of you are still going to be eligible for non-graduate fellowships. Scholarships are generally for undergraduate work, the Truman and Goldwater, so you can be thinking about those. And these guidelines apply to those as well. Mortarboard fellowships, you just saw on the slides when we started this session that there were 9 awards this year, 40,000 total. The application opens in November and closes December 15th, but watch those deadlines because they can change. The Mortarboard Fellowship asks for information in these various areas. Honors and recognitions, your mortarboard experience. So be active in your chapter, volunteer for activities, chair them, be a mortarboard member that shows up. Leadership and service, and you're limited to 5, so choose them carefully. And then you're asked to talk about your experience, work experience, and your personal statement. And these can be your goals. And there's an optional category at the end to talk about anything that wasn't addressed in any of the previous topics. So specifically things you find there are any diversity issues that you might have encountered, specific needs, you work 3 jobs and are supporting yourself through school. Those type of things you should address in this category. I've had a student that refused to do it, and specifically that program addressed diverse students. And so you need to know and answer all of these thoroughly. The transcript can be unofficial. You don't have to pay for an official one, and letters of recommendation. We'll talk about those a little bit more in a minute. The transcript, unofficial is fine, but it doesn't mean to do a degree audit that spits out 15 pages. Remember, you want to keep the reviewer happy and have them look at the least amount of information. Official transcript looks something like this. And so it should go semester by semester for 8, 10 semesters, however long you're in school. Information that's asked for in the area of honors and recognitions asks you to list the information. And I really enforce that you need to list that information. Use your bullets, make it easy for the reviewer again. Group similar honors and activities together. Be sure and describe information. Don't just list the name of an organization, Alpha, Alpha, or Delta, because a lot of reviewers aren't going to know what that is. So spell out what that group does, but do it in a concise list. And if you're doing citations, if you've been involved in research, be sure that you use the citations for your publications, that it's not just, here's the title of my publication and I'm the author, but you use a formal citation. So here's an example of one that I reviewed. It happened to be for an engineering one. You can see that those are engineering activities, and you can see it's very difficult to pull out what the important information is. This is much more straightforward. So bullet your information and explain what needs to be explained. Often you're limited in the number of characters that you can use. So again, that's going to define how you present that information. So Annie, do we have any questions yet?
No, ma'am, I do not see any yet, but I just wanted to jump in real quick and talk about the Mortarboard Fellowship. I was a recipient as well as my best friend Ivy from our institution, and we both had very different packets for Mortarboard. I was chapter president, and she was a very involved member and did our initiation and induction ceremony. And so we had different things to talk about, but it didn't make either of our packets less worthy of the award and of the fellowship. So just because you're not the chapter president does not mean that you're not eligible for this. You're still serving and being a steward of Mortarboard and of your chapter.
That's excellent point, Annie. And again, I emphasize, to be a recipient of the Mortarboard Fellowship, you need to be involved with your chapter. But that doesn't mean that you have to be an elected officer. So if you've got a passion and you want your chapter to be involved in it, then create that opportunity, make it happen, and talk about it in your application. The work experience and personal goals, almost every application asks you to have some form of these. And they're pretty hard to define for some students. I know it would have been for me, because I had some goals, but they were pretty generic and not well defined. So you may need to sit down and hone this information. And there are resources that will help you do this. Your essay should demonstrate promise of success. What you've tackled, how it was successful. I know, like in Ivy's case, that she was a co-chair for faculty recognition, which was highly successful, and she could talk about that. Annie could talk about her leadership and how the chapter evolved over the year. So demonstrate that promise. But you need to show how you're motivated to pursue your career. This needs to engage your reviewer. They need to think that you are excited to begin your career. and how you're going to prepare for it. How have your experiences shaped your goals? Maybe you started out to be an environmental engineer, and sorry for all the engineering applications because I happen to be an engineering faculty member. But maybe halfway through it, you discovered that you really are interested in medicine. And so now your goal is to go to medical school. So talk about how that shift happened and why you are invested in your current program. But I will caution you against hopping around about, we had a student at our university that had like 4 different goals during his 4 years of undergraduate. And it just sounds like he isn't focused when he really was. So, pick one or two and talk about why, you're in a different direction. If you've always wanted to be a physical therapist, then great, talk about that. So resources that are available to you. There should be, on most of our campuses, there is a fellowship office that works with students to apply for these awards. It can be full-time. One of the institutions that I'm aware of has 12 full-time members in their office. And some of them can be very part-time, like my institution, where they had 2 of us working, paying us adjunct salaries for not very many hours a week. But those people are trained. There are national conferences that they attend that help them in making their students successful in these programs. So find out where they are. If you can't find that out, just let me know, because I do have a directory of those fellowship advisors. And then your universities all have a writing center, and I recommend that you check in with them, show them your materials. A good resource that I found a number of years ago was written by Joe Schall, and he's at the University of at Penn State. And he's got several different publications, one that's entitled Writing Personal Statements. And he doesn't just give you an example, there are examples of numerous personal statements for various competitions and applications. So you can read through them and you can see what other people deem as being, relevant to this type of an effort to applying for scholarships. There's tons of blogs out there. The blog that I used to refer people to is now gone. It's posted somewhere else that you have to pay for. But this was one I found, and there's some good tips there. They're written by other students, successful applicants like Annie, that say what they did. So it gives you the perspective from somebody that teaches students, somebody that applied, and then your fellowship office of somebody that's been successful in getting these awards made. Okay, letters of recommendation. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this because I think this is generally, I do a survey with the reviewers for the Tau Beta Pi fellowships, and I ask them what's important to them. Some of the reviewers say, I just read the letters of recommendation, or I read them first because they're the most important. Other people say, well, they're not as important depending upon who wrote them and whatnot, but they are deemed to be fairly important by most people. I know students are reluctant to ask faculty. That's my second bullet point. They should include a faculty member. And I know at bigger institutions, this isn't always as easy as can be. So that's something that, your job this next year is to cultivate those faculty members. I know that Annie had one faculty member who continues to write letters for her. So that's part of our job. And again, at some institutions, faculty may not view it as part of their job, but it still is to help you get to realize your dreams and goals. So include your faculty member in your application, and they should have your application down at the bottom, provide them a draft of all your statements, ask them to review it and comment on it because this isn't the first time they've done it. And they probably will have some good suggestions. They need to know you well. If you are regularly meet with the president of your institution and that person knows you well and can talk about your personal attributes and your qualifications, that's perfect. I'm an adjunct faculty, so I often recommend that students use somebody other than me because my title isn't as impressive. But I go through a list of how well these other people know you, and often we come down to the realization that I probably can write a better letter for them than people that they had in one class. So they do need to know you well. They need to know what you've accomplished, and they can address those things in their letters. Ask them early and often. I get students that say, well, you already wrote a letter for me. I'm not going to ask you again. And I'm going, no, once I've written one letter, the second is a whole lot easier to write. So, don't feel hesitant about asking for multiple letters, but be sure that you provide them information about what that letter is for so they can specifically tailor their comments to what you need. And it has to be on letterhead and signed. If it's not, who knows? Maybe it was your roommate that wrote it.
And this is our 5 minute warning, Dr. Stedman. And I just wanted to echo that making connections on your campus is so important. And that's why being a part of something like Mortarboard is so cool because not only are you making connections with your advisor, but also across the country. And so if you're applying for something at another institution, there might be someone in our network that can help you.
Those 9 people that were listed as fellowship recipients this year, if you didn't capture them, they will be on the website and reach out to them. So to recap, strong application is unified. It isn't, piecemeal one thing in your goal statement and something else in your work experience and something else in your letters of recommendation. Everybody's talking about the same goals. Concise and clear, edited and revised multiple times. Some students say they revised them like 10 times. I don't know, Annie, how many times you revised yours. But those typos are really bad, and I'm serious. It's about 3 typos, and I go, nope. You've got spell check, you've got word processors, you've got your writing center. There's numerous places that you can submit a polished application. Strong letters of recommendation and the engaging the reader is important. Address the guidelines. Sometimes they say that they're applying for this research fellowship when it's all about service. So be sure that you read the guidelines, you prepare in advance, start early, allow for internet issues. There are a lot of these applications. NSF is one of them. 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon is the deadline, period. If you've got internet issues, it doesn't matter. Next year you apply if you're eligible. Be sure that you're eligible for the application and involve your faculty throughout the process. And I'll let you read these in the posted effort about how to improve your chances. We've talked about most of these. And this is the information. There's the QR code for this presentation. And both Annie's and my emails are on there. I've also given you the link, the URL, in case the QR code doesn't work. So anything in the chat? I can't believe nobody has any questions.
I don't see anything in the chat, but if anyone wants to drop something or unmute, we'd love to answer them.
How many of you are planning on applying for the Mortarboard Fellowship?
Okay, see a couple of hands.
Can I chime in with that, Dr. Stedman and Annie?
Yeah.
So the Mortarboard Fellowship will open on November 15th. And you have until March 15th to apply. So you'll be able to get in and see what it asks for. And then you can even start it and come back and edit things at any time. So all the information should be on the website. Many of the fellow winners, because they'll be announced tonight at the those who won the fellowship last year, many, I think 6 of the 9 are going to be at our candlelight celebration this evening. So feel free to send them a Zoom chat if you want to ask for their information as well. Annie's obviously a great contact too, since she's both an RC. We actually have quite a few current RCs who are past fellowship recipients. So if you want to ask anybody, feel free to reach out to our office as well. But, I think Dr. Stedman she writes some really great fellowship recommendations. I have read them. So I think when she talks about the importance of the letter of recommendations, that is absolutely true. I know I've had some students in mortarboard ask me after only a few interactions, I'm not the right person to write on your behalf, right? And it doesn't mean I don't like you or I don't have confidence in you, but if we've only interacted a few times, it's probably hard for me to really speak to what you want the person to speak about. And so definitely, as she said, the biggest thing I can say is really for those letters of rec, ask in plenty of advance notice. So that also if they say, you know what, I'm not sure that I can do you justice, let's think about who else could write on your behalf. But that is a really important piece.
I see a chat that asked about age restrictions. I'm not aware of any in any one of the competitions that I've read for. There are no age restrictions. And the breakout just went away, the chat. Annie, did you catch the second?
I can see the other question. It says, are there any additional expectations or requirements that are connected once you are selected for the Mortarboard Fellowship? Oh, for Mortarboard specifically, you do a mid-year report and send your transcripts. You get half of the installation at the beginning of your fall, half at the beginning of the spring, just so we can make sure you're still enrolled in school and still academically moving forward. And then we do ask to write letters to our kind donors and reviewers that provide you with the fellowship. And then we encourage you to get engaged and involved as part of a cohort of Mortarboard Fellows.
But that's an excellent question because like the SMART fellowships for STEM opportunities require that you work with